Here we go. All right, for anybody who's been following along at home, welcome back to the Talking Average Fitness Podcast. As always, I am your host, Mr. Sam Burns. I'm joined perpetually, it seems, by the only human who is taller than me and yet somehow worse at rowing, Mr. Kevin McCarthy. Kevin, how the hell are you, sir?
I've spent the past few years trying to figure out why the hell I'm taller and worse at rowing. It's something that confounds me. Again, it's like how many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop? The world may never know.
Right.
I should probably just stop being a soft sack of shit. But I'm doing good, Sam. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for asking. Appreciate you. So on the heels of our previous discussion with Mr. James Hobart, which was like super cool. And I mean,
The best.
anytime you get to talk with James, it's fantastic. Great head on the dude, and like super esoteric and high level. This
Like
is
you,
not
you
that.
never know. You never know where it's going to go. Whenever you
No,
get James in a conversation, you have at no point during that conversation do you have any idea what's going to happen next. Not a
absolutely,
clue.
yeah,
Not a clue.
and and it's cool to just kind of like let him run, and to
Yeah.
see. I was going back and revisiting the same thing with Pat Barber talking about bodybuilding, just kind of like where the conversation goes and stuff like that. And that stuff is very, very cool to be a part of. And so probably the reason we should continue to have guests
Yeah.
so long as they'll allow us. Um, Today's topic is not at all that. Today's topic is very much right here in your face.
Yep.
Hence why the screen is all like smushed and you got us like right in your fucking dome piece. So it's going to be supplements, right? And
Mm.
what do we mean when we talk about supplements? We're going to talk about a lot of stuff, right?
We're going to talk about
Uh,
a lot of stuff
we're going to
today.
talk about a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff to talk about.
Oh, yeah.
So supplements can mean a bunch of different things, right? We should probably define some terms
I would
here,
say,
right?
how would you define supplements? If someone comes up and says, Sam, what are supplements?
Right. So maybe we should start with things like what supplements are not, right?
Mm.
We have talked previously about the big major levers that you can pull in your training in order to get the most out of your training, right?
Hmm.
So, those are things like food. Are you eating enough? Are you eating the right things in the right quantities, the right distributions and balances, and things like that? Those are things like sleep. For the love of God, stop pulling all nighters. Like I think about the number of times back in college that I just stayed up all night. And then I remember years ago reading a study talking about how if you do that over and over and over again, it like drops bad things into your genetic code. And so I
Yep.
really, now that I'm on the eve of having my second child. So I hope that I haven't,
Say Godspeed.
yeah, I hope I haven't screwed them up somehow. And then there's things like training intensity, right? Like, are you training hard enough, right? Sleep, nutrition, intensity. What else am I missing here? Rest, recovery,
Mindset.
mindset. Yeah, I like, that's kind of like a soft science type deal.
Well, but still, it can
App
it can play a role into, you know, we got levers of different sizes, as
for
as
sure,
we like to say.
right? And no judgment. Like everybody's levers a different size, right?
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
and I couldn't leave that one alone.
God,
Sorry.
God damn it, Sam.
So so those are the things that are not supplements, right? You're going to move the needle the most if you're doing as much as you can with those things. So don't eat like to like it says right underneath your name. Don't eat like a dingus, right? Also
Boom.
don't sleep like a dingus. And don't train like a dingus. We're defining dingus as someone who is not paying attention, doing it haphazardly, doing way more or way less than they should, right?
Hmm.
All of that is not supplementation, right? And so now turning to what is supplementation, maybe the most, like the easiest place to start and the place where people are most familiar with is like nutritional supplementation,
Yep.
right? So we talked about the importance of food. My clients who I work with, myself, we have goals. Our food intake serves the pursuit of those goals. And an important part of that food intake equation is things like protein intake. Are you getting enough protein for what your goals are? And it's great if you can get all of your protein from like natural, unprocessed whole food sources. Sometimes it's not convenient, sometimes it's not palatable to do that. So, probably one of the most popular supplements in the world is whey protein, right? And of course, there's like whey and there's casein and there's a whole bunch of other stuff, but protein supplementation, when you how often do you drink like protein shakes? Like, how often do you do protein supplementation? Or is it like never? You only ever eat beefsteak?
um, it's not super often. Maybe like once or twice a week, maybe.
Wow.
Usually it's like, so the easiest thing for me is like, so I have soccer practice that ends at 10:30 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not shoving down a three-course meal at 10:30 p.m. on my way home. I gotta like go to bed. So like I'll just bring a protein shake in the car and just have that after practice. It's a little bit of something to kind of
Yeah.
kickstart protein synthesis, help with that recovery thing, but it's not going to take forever to digest. So
Yeah.
when I get home, I can get right to sleep and fall into sleep a little bit easier there. So
Right.
that's usually at the moment when I'm doing it. Um, I've used protein more, I've used protein less. It's fluctuated as life has gone on and goals have changed and lifestyles have changed and um, all that fun stuff. So it has definitely varied, but at the moment it's like one or two times per week.
That's not bad. I'm in a I'm in a situation where I'm probably I'd say 4 to 6 times a week.
Okay.
I get a lot of my protein from whole food sources, so here's something that should be said. If you are trying to eat an appropriate amount of protein, I define an appropriate amount of protein as something approaching 1 gram per pound of body weight, right? And
Somewhere in that realm. Yep.
that's grams of protein, which means you're going to eat more than that many grams of some kind of protein source.
Hmm.
So, like, you know, 200 or more grams of chicken in a single serving multiple times a day is the kind of level of protein intake that I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
that's tough. I don't know if you ever had seen this or heard this, but I remember watching an interview. I forget what show it was, but it was for like when Zac Efron did Baywatch with Dwayne Johnson, and when they redid Baywatch as a movie.
Right, right, right.
And Zach was talking about like the diet that he had to like the training program and nutrition that he had to do to get in shape for that movie and have like -2% body fat for some of those
Yo,
scenes. And he was like, he made the comment, he was like, I got so tired of eating chicken and the chewing was so much of a chore. 'Cause it's literally like 6 meals a day, like
yeah,
1 to 2 whole chicken breasts.
yeah.
That he was like, literally, what I would do is you have your meal, rice, chicken, whatever it is. He was like, I would just take the meal, put it in a blender, and
Yes.
blend it because I didn't want to chew anymore. He was like,
Yeah.
it's gross. You're just gonna like knock it back and chug it and get it done with. It's like it's not didn't taste good, but it saved me from chewing, and that was all I was concerned with at that point.
That's that's real. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
I'll never forget Jason Varitek. Shout out Boston Red Sox. Um, Boston Red Sox are the greatest from now until the end of forever. Jason Varitek, someone interviewing him and being like, "What's something that people don't understand about
hmm,
being a professional athlete?" And his immediate response is the amount of food that you have
yep,
to eat. You
yeah.
know, and
It was.
go ahead.
I was gonna just like from a personal anecdote with like when I was coming off of playing soccer in college and like getting into CrossFit, I'm like I might want to do this competitively, and give that a go. It's like I was like I can't weigh 180 pounds at 6'1" anymore. Like this
Yeah.
just it ain't gonna do it for a competitive CrossFitter. Look at any successful male athlete my height, they're like right around 6 feet. They're like somewhere in the 200 to 210 ish range body
Like
weight.
low 190s,
Yeah,
high 2 O's, 2 aughts.
yeah, yeah. And I was like, okay, so I need to put on some weight, but that just wasn't in accordance to my frame and my size. I had to eat so much food, and I had people ask, they're like, I'm like, oh, got to go eat again. Oh, got to have this again. Oh,
Yup.
people are like, what are you doing to eat to gain weight? I'm like, oh, I'm doing this weight like this. I'd make a shake one
Uh-huh.
to two times per day. Whole milk, 2 scoops of protein powder,
Mm-hmm.
some sort of fruit in there, usually like a banana, stuff like that. It's like, some carbs in there.
Yeah.
And then just spoons of peanut butter. Just
Yes.
like multiple spoons, is 3 to 5 spoons of peanut butter. I would, so
Spoonerino.
dude, I did out the calories, like calculated everything out of the macros of that shake.
Yeah.
Each shake was like
1,200.
1,500 to 1,800 calories. And I would have 1 to 2 of those per day on top of everything else I was trying to eat
Yeah.
to put weight on my frame and keep it there. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, I can smash a pizza in my dome piece and gain a little bit of weight for like a couple days. But then as soon as your body flushes out that inflammation and water, like you're
Yeah.
back to where you were. So it's
Right.
like to put on useful, productive weight and keep it there was such a chore. And it was absolutely ridiculous. And when I told people about it, they're like, oh, that must have been so nice. I was like, I don't think you understand how much I wanted to throw up at all hours of the day. I was like, I want you to drink that shake and then 2 hours later, dude, one burpee and try not to throw up. Like
Right.
that. Oh my gosh. And that again, you can put all different problems in like relativity. However, that if you're someone that needs to eat that much, you're a professional
Yeah.
athlete,
Yeah.
you're someone doing that, it is hard to eat that much food.
Yes.
And when people are like, oh, I'm trying to gain weight, well, eat more. Well, I already eat so much. Well, however much you think you're eating, eat more.
Yeah.
Like it's just a math equation. If you haven't started gaining weight yet, you're not eating enough.
Yeah. And it's that, and or you're not training hard enough.
Well,
Um,
okay, yes.
yeah. And so all of this is, we could lose a lot of time telling horror stories about stuff like this. And
Yeah.
I've played this game too. In fact,
Oh yeah,
before my first kid, I tried to gain as much mass as possible in 3 months.
that's
And for
amazing.
almost 3 months, I ate close to 4,000 calories. And like, I put on a little bit,
Yeah,
but not
dude,
not enough fast enough.
it's
And
so much food. And the thing
it's
is like people that like you're like, okay, I ate 4,000 calories. Like, okay, if I eat that whole pizza, that's 4,000 calories.
sure.
But when you try and make 4,000 calories out of chicken and rice and broccoli, which is,
Yeah.
and it can be different, but like a meat, a clean starch, and a veggie,
Yes.
it's like when you're trying to gain weight, it's like omit the veggies. They are
Yeah.
just taking up space in your stomach that
It's a
other
waste of my
calories could
time.
go in. It's a waste of calories. It's a
Yes.
waste of stomach space. So it really is. That's a real. If you're legitimately trying to put on weight, like that, vegetables are a waste of time, and
Well,
and that's it.
and so it should be obvious by now why people supplement with protein, right? So even
Yeah.
if you're
Yep.
not trying to eat 4,000 calories, it's hard to hit. Like if you're a 180-pound guy and you're trying to hit 180 grams of protein and you're not used to trying to hit that much protein a day,
Yeah. It's
like
like you're
that's where protein,
eating you're eating like for 3 to 4 meals per day, you're eating like a 6 to 8 ounce piece of meat
something, I mean, my,
or a little
my,
bit more.
my breakfast, I'm in like 190 grams of protein right now. My breakfast is 3 whole eggs, a couple pieces of bacon. Um, Middle of the day, I'll very often have some kind of something that has a beef or chicken, or sometimes I will just like cook up a package of beef or a package of bison or something like that, and I will eat it in a bowl. And then there's
It's the
always,
best.
oh,
That
it's
with
so good.
rice, oh,
Yeah.
it pisses Sammy off. That's my go-to meal. I'm like, it's so easy. Ground beef, get some rice in there. It's like just make a rice beef thing, put like just a little drizzle of something on top, and
Ryan Fisher
the
calls that meat
best.
cereal.
That's well, you want one better. So I remember Austin Maliola when he was. I mean, Austin's always a head case, but he like when he was going around like, I mean, in the nicest way possible. He just like does
Yes,
all the
yes.
different things. He's just going at all times. I remember when they were trying to get him signed that like as an athlete on Whoop, they're like, as soon as he puts a Whoop on his wrist, it's gonna melt off. It's not gonna know how to calculate like what that guy does.
Right.
But he was like when he was traveling around doing a bunch of seminars and like coaching at Reebok and trying to go to the games, and he like needed to like keep weight on him.
Yeah.
He would do it's called a meat roll up. So you take like deli meat and cheese and you
Yeah.
roll it up and you just like eat that. And he's like,
Yeah.
he would just have meat roll ups.
Beautiful. So that's a great example. Like protein supplementation, great example, easy example, right? Something we've
Yep.
all played with, right?
Yep. Relatively common.
Relatively common. Similar, we don't have to go down this rabbit hole, but similar would be like carbohydrate supplementation.
Mm.
Like a there.
Maltodextrin powder.
Yeah, thank you, maltodextrin. So like maltodextrin powder is a simple carbohydrate, something that tastes good. You can throw it into a shake, and now you get like carbs and protein, and it's powder form. And
Yep.
like if you're not, this is my honest belief, and I welcome challenge on this. If you're not already a competitive athlete at a high level, there's zero reason why you need to supplement with carb powder or anything
Right.
like that.
Yep. Yep.
Beyond that stuff, and those are what Michael Pollan would call man-made food-like substances, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
whey protein. If it's super clean, then it's actually derived from a food. But things like there are some other proteins and maltodextrins and stuff like that. It's not really food because none of that stuff grew in the ground or
Right.
it's highly processed, and that's fine. It's
Yeah.
for an end state.
It's basically just
That
powdering and pulling out the primary macronutrient of a food source and
right?
pulling that out, putting it in powder, and then allowing you to consume it easier
Absolutely.
or quicker.
Both. And then outside of the food stuff, we get into
Mm.
some more interesting things, right? And I think
So
one
many
that
interesting things.
so many interesting things. I think one that people miss, but it seems really obvious, is caffeine.
I was
Like
just gonna, so when you said that protein was the most common or like most used supplement in the world, I was like, I disagree. Caffeine. Because
but
I don't know a single human that's not caffeine addicted. I mean, we had, what was it, how many episodes ago? Sam was just necking back a whole pot of coffee on the
I
podcast.
regret nothing. I
I,
regret nothing.
I regret nothing for you. I thought it was amazing. I was like, I support this.
Well, the so what's interesting about that is yes, I believe we are a caffeine addicted society. And
Yeah.
by the by, I'm fine with that. until we've got a better understanding of everything that goes into it. The guy from Magic Mind would tell you that we're all crazy, but that's neither here nor there.
Well,
So what's funny about that is if you don't understand the mechanisms at play, you could be forgiven for thinking that you're not utilizing caffeine as a supplement, right? Or that the supplement that you are taking, like a pre workout, is something super and special, when in reality, it's just a shit ton of caffeine and maybe some beta alanine.
yeah.
Um,
It's way too
and
much caffeine, if we're being honest. If we want to talk, like, get nerdy about dosages
yeah,
and like how much is like productive versus unproductive versus makes you poop.
right.
Um, you know, you
Which is a mystery number and it changes all the time.
know. I mean, sometimes it's, oh,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
gets
Well,
things
let's, well,
moving,
let's,
people.
well,
But
let's, let's leave that aside, right?
yeah,
A standard cup of coffee, and we're not going to get into like the
different
measurements or anything like
beans
that.
and roasts and stuff. Like, it's just a
Let's
standard cup of coffee. Like,
150, 200 milligrams of caffeine, something like
yeah,
that, right?
120. Well, again, that's where it depends on the roast. The lighter it is, the more caffeine it is. If you're
Yes.
looking like an average cup of coffee, if you go to like Starbucks, you go to Starbucks and get just like
You
what
get
is
a
it, like the
pike.
Pike's, yeah, Pike's Place, like, which is like a medium roasted coffee, and
Mm-hmm.
you get when I say like a cup, like an 8 to 10 ounce cup. If
Yep.
you're getting like a Venti Grande, it more obviously, but like just an 8 to 10 ounce cup is probably like somewhere between 100 to 150 milligrams of
Yeah.
caffeine per like normal cup of coffee, quote
Here
unquote
we go.
normal.
So a 200, a 12-ounce Pike Place coffee is
Yeah.
235 milligrams of caffeine, right? So
Okay.
that's not,
Too
if you got a
much.
venti, right,
Yeah.
you're probably nigh on to 300, right?
Yeah. Way too much.
But
You
wait
get a
till
Starbucks blonde roast. Oh, I'm
let's
pretty
go.
sure. I'm pretty sure it's either the Grande or the Venti. The blonde roast from Starbucks has like 450 milligrams of caffeine. I forget which
I
size it is, but
it's got to be the venti.
it's okay. So the Venti is like 450
So I
milligrams of
say that
caffeine.
now I'm gonna do it.
Well, because I would get those for Colin every day because I want to see what he's capable of when he's firing on all cylinders, baby.
Starbucks caffeine. Let's
I don't know
go.
what the blonde roast is called, but it has a name.
Which has the caffeine is in Starbucks blonde roast coffee. Wimp. Ooh. A let's see. A grande blonde
Hmm.
is 300, while a grande pike is 310. The difference is only 10. I want to see it from anyway. It doesn't matter. We could we could lose a lot of
There's so
time there.
much, a lot of caffeine,
So
a lot of stuff.
here's an example. Like I have a pre-workout upstairs, right?
Hmm.
From a company who I've bought their supplements for years. The To be fair, they brand this as their high level intensity pre-workout. A
Yeah.
scoop that is this big, it's about the size of a quarter, and the depth of a dime is over 300 milligrams of caffeine.
Oh, woo. You,
And like
you start like seeing sounds with that. Like I've,
what I what I do what I do notice is first of all, I metabolize caffeine very quickly. So like I'm the guy who can have a cup of coffee at 8 p.m. and be asleep by 8:45.
blows my mind.
I so I've always been able to do it, and it's
Yep.
and I
Yep.
you know I even still sleep pretty well. Um, but what I notice is when I use the caffeine for that particular purpose, and it's got to be in a very specific kind of way. So like if I've got my shaker bottle here, you're looking at a blender bottle, standard size blender bottle. I'll do 12 ounces or less of water. So about
Yep.
halfway.
Half. Yep.
Yep. And then that scoop of protein powder. And down it as quickly as I can. And that's the thing that gives me, by the time I'm warmed up and I'm lifting, and I use it exclusively with lifting. By
Hmm.
the time I'm warmed up and I'm lifting, that's the thing. If anyone saw my recent post on Instagram where I'm screaming at the barbell, that's like that's the feeling that I'm going for when I use caffeine like that.
I was terrified. I was like, Sam's going to war.
Every once in a while, you gotta
You
you
do.
gotta
You
yell. You
do.
gotta yell,
You gotta get jazzed up. I get it. I get it.
right? What's what is a supplement? So I mean, like we caffeine all day, every day. What is the supplement that you use that is, or that you have used, let's say, that's
Hmm.
still innocuous, but also not a food source?
Oh man. Well, I mean, because you say like you say creatine, and
Yes.
creatine is one of the most researched supplements out there. It's effective 100% of the time, all the time, unless
Mm-hmm.
you're someone who has like an allergic reaction to it. Um, but like your body produces creatine naturally, and if you
Yes.
have a very varied, um, diet, and you're getting different micronutrients, macronutrients from multiple different food sources, your body will produce enough creatine that you don't need to supplement it.
Yep.
However, like you can supplement it, and it helps with basically regeneration of ATP. Yes, Sam.
Thank you. I was going to say, for those of us who learned everything we know about exercise science anecdotally,
Hmm.
please go back to your exercise physiology background and describe to us why creatine is important.
Um, so creatine is important because it helps us recycle ATP back in the muscle cell to be used for high power output stuff. For the phosphocreatine pathway, which is, if you're thinking like anything lifting, sprinting, think like you push a sled,
Yep.
but it's a very short time window, like less than 10, maybe like 15 seconds at the
Yep.
absolute longest is how long the energy system can go. But
Short
it basically,
anaerobic power.
exactly.
Yep.
So high power output, high force, short duration.
Mm-hmm.
That's what creatine helps with. So if you are a power lifter, a weightlifter, a sprinter, something like that, creatine can have massive performance benefits
Yes.
to your sport and your performance.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of CrossFit athletes will use it because they also lift the heavy shit. But creatine's not doing anything for you in your metcons. Again, as
Yeah.
soon as you go over 15 seconds,
Yeah.
glycolysis takes over, anaerobic glycolysis takes over, and the phosphocreatine pathway is not shut off. They all kind of are running simultaneously, but you have one that has the gas pedal down, and the other two are more idling,
Yeah.
so to speak. And so that's what creatine helps for.
Yeah.
Um, it's
And
not super magic. It's not anything super wild. Like you can produce enough of it on your own with a proper and varied uh, nutrition plan and diet, but it's one of the most common supplements and it's the most researched
yeah.
and it does work.
Yes. And to be clear, and please correct me if I speak out of turn here, but when Kevin's talking about the cessation of the phosphocreatine pathway being prioritized and then the glycolytic pathway, we're talking about glycogen in your muscle groups. That's a fuel
Mhm.
source that's provided vis-a-vis carbohydrate intake, correct?
User.
Right. So this is when we talk
Yep.
about CrossFit in particular being a carbohydrate driven sport, and the reason we like some people have trouble with CrossFit and intensity while also on low carb diets.
Hmm.
Um, that's why, is because there's not enough glycogen inside of the muscle stores to fuel optimal power output in the time domains that we are utilizing most often. Right.
Yep. Yep.
Right. So creatine, I agree. I've also heard there's some kind of like there are nootropic benefits for creatine. So like I know people who will take creatine in the morning and there's some enhanced cognitive function that can come out of that. I don't know that that's as
Ooh.
well researched. Um,
Maybe not, because I hadn't heard that before, or maybe I
mhm.
just had heard it and just not paid attention to it. Um, that's interesting.
Yeah, things that are worth
Put
looking
that in your
into.
coffee in the morning, Sam, and let us know how it goes.
Nobody needs to see me like that. Um,
I do. How do you think you're gonna get through this second kid, man? You're gonna,
this is going to be interesting. Like
it's
training, and I remember the last time I took several weeks off in training entirely when
yep.
my first son Noah was born. My goal, and I have a coach that I work with. My goal is to not let that happen, and I'm so grateful. My in-laws are here; they're staying with us for a month, and so they're going to be here to help us with baby number two.
There we go.
So my goal is to be able to carve out 40 minutes a couple times a week to
Boom.
just keep up
Keep it
with.
going. Two to
Yeah,
three times per
exactly.
week. It's all you need. Listen,
That's all I need, man.
it's all you need. It's all it is.
And I'll tell you on the back end if that's the case, or if I was lying to myself. Um, okay, so caffeine, creatine. There can be arguments that are made for things like um, beta alanine
Mm.
or
Branched chain amino acids,
yeah,
leucine.
BCAAs, leucine, and all of that stuff. Everything that shout out to the Instagram page Wad Science. They do a
They do a
great,
great job.
so good. They do great little infographics in carousel posts, and you can flip through them. It's all peer reviewed stuff, and they
Yep.
do these summations of, here's a meta analysis of the outcome of athletes who supplemented with BCAAs versus those who didn't. And spoiler alert, BCAA intake doesn't do shit so long as you've got
Nope.
sufficient protein intake.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. And they're so expensive. Like you get a thing of branched chain amino acids. It's like, all right. So like again, because branched chain amino acids, for those people that might not know, is just essentially broken down proteins into
Yeah.
the different. Once you have all the amino acids put together, it makes
Yeah.
essentially one protein.
Correct me if
Um,
I'm wrong. The thing that makes protein is the amino acids for all intents
yes,
and purposes.
yes,
Yeah.
100%. So without getting too super nerdy about it, when you're taking branched chain amino acids, you're just taking a small kind of like micro dose of components of protein.
Mm-hmm.
And that's essentially what it is. However, one little tub of branched chain amino acids, which is like maybe 20 to 30 scoops.
Yep.
If you're doing multiple scoops per thing, it's going to last you half a month. Is like $60. Where like
Yeah. Easy 60
you
bucks.
can get a bag of Ascent protein, which is 30 scoops or 32 scoops or something,
Yeah.
25 grams of protein per scoop.
Yeah.
You can get that for $40. So
And
it's
it,
like,
and it's a food derived protein, so it's a complete
yep,
protein.
yep. And Ascent does a great job where like they have, just a shout out to them, that not sponsored yet.
Mm.
But they do they do a great
Come on,
job of
tag
like
them in this.
their protein powder. Like if you look at the ingredients, like they're very minimally processed.
Super minimal.
It's not full of any sort of shit.
Yeah.
It's
It's
not going to taste exactly like a chocolate milkshake like some companies do, but it also doesn't have 30 grams of sugar per scoop either.
right.
So
And one of the cool things is it's not very common. It's more common now, thank goodness, So the FDA has rules about what kind of labels get put on packages, right? So like on the things that you buy that are supplements, you get a supplement uh, label, right? On the
Hmm.
things that you buy that are food, right? And when we say food, we mean man-made food-like substances because they don't put nutrition labels on steak or
Right.
apples, right?
Right.
But if you buy Pop Tarts, for example, right? That's a man made
Yeah.
substance that you can ingest. There's a food label. There are different requirements
Yep.
about the clarity with which you list things on a food label than a supplement label. Spoiler alert, they get away with a lot more shit with supplement labels.
100%.
Ascent is one of the few products that gets as a quote unquote supplement a food label on the back of their product. And it's just cool that they went through the extra hoop jumping to get that done.
Yep.
That was not a thing that they needed to do.
No.
All right. Enough with the Mr. Nice people, right? So
What other
we
kinds of supplements are there, Sam?
we all know there's some people and they be doing some shit.
People be peopling.
People be peopling. Oh dear Lord. So supplements serve cheaply to quote unquote supplement our intake that we get from all the stuff that we're talking about. We're talking about protein, we're talking about creatine, which is a process, which is the thing that you make in your body. We're just giving you more of that, right?
Yep.
Exogenously
Mm.
getting additional things that you get is a little bit more complicated, especially when you get into the world of things like hormones, like
Mm.
testosterone. And now we are into the world of steroids, right?
Oh yeah.
So um, let me be 100% clear on the front end of this. Steroids work.
Yep.
There's a reason
There's a
that
reason people take them.
absolutely there is a and not just and shout out to Derek from More Plates More Dates. He has 7 years of YouTube videos, thousands of them, where he breaks down the science behind what these compounds are, what their effects on the body are, and things like that. He's also the founder of Merrick Health, which is a telehealth corporation, and so it's very very cool to go down that rabbit hole and to find out stuff. And what you end up with is this kind of three-tiered family tree. So there's the parent hormone for essentially all of these steroids is testosterone, right? And testosterone is important because it, as an anabolic, is the thing that helps drive muscle growth and helps drive recovery, right? Now,
Hmm.
if you are getting adequate sleep, right, you are getting a dose of testosterone every night
Yep. And
because,
human growth hormone. It's like
and human growth hormone.
you get the biggest dump of human growth hormone when you go into your first sleep cycle.
Yes.
The thing is though, and here's the trick, is like it's because everything all kind of goes along with a circadian rhythm.
Uh-huh.
You're going to get and there's obviously a tipping point, but you're going to get the biggest kind of dump of growth hormone into your system
Mm-hmm.
earlier in the evening.
Yes.
So if Sam goes to bed at 9 p.m. and I go to bed at 11:30 p.m.,
I was going to say, bro,
Sam
I'm
is
asleep by 9 p.m. I got a
well,
kid.
okay. All right, listen. Well, you're not going to be going to sleep at 9 p.m. much longer, bro.
True
Uh,
story.
so, um, but for the sake of the argument, if you go to bed at 9 and I go to bed at 11:30, you are going to get a larger dump of growth hormone. Now, if
Yeah.
Sam goes to bed at 4 p.m., he's
Mm,
gone past all of you. You went to bed too early.
yeah.
Again going against the circadian rhythm that's kind of set within your physiology. So it's not like, okay, well, I'm just going to go to bed at 2 a.m. and I'm
Yeah.
just going to get this growth hormone done when I go to sleep. No,
No.
you're not. You
No.
miss those windows because you're going to bed too late.
Yeah.
So it's like if they could find a way to like test like when and how growth hormone went into your body, and it was like basically sleep is a performance enhancing drug if you do it
Absolutely.
properly. If you go to bed at the right
Absolutely.
times, if you were someone who's like was sleeping all over the place and didn't have a sleep schedule and was sleeping 6 hours a night, and then all of a sudden you go to start going to bed a little bit earlier, you get a full 8 to 9 hour chunk of sleep, you are going to feel like a superhuman. And that's
Yeah.
not just because you're rested.
Yeah. The thing that tells you that you're rested is you got all those fancy fucking hormones.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
And I think it was Dr. Andrew Huberman who said that testosterone makes effort feel good, right? And
Yeah.
so, speaking specifically to the discussion that we're having right now, if you are getting adequate rest and then you go and you do your working sets, you do, let's leave it to resistance training just for the sake of simple argument, right?
Hmm.
You being quote unquote well rested, which is defined by the combination of receiving an appropriate dose of testosterone, receiving an appropriate dose of human growth hormone, getting sufficient quantity of both deep and REM sleep, those two hormone dumps being part of the deep sleep portion of that. You've
Hmm.
got the an appropriate amount of light sleep that is a part of this whole thing, but also so you've got the quality and the quantity portion. That's what it means when we talk about being rested. When you go into the gym next, you are rested, you've got those hormones, you've recovered appropriately. That's what's going to enable you to perform optimally, right? And so now that's internal hormone use. You know, you're pulling the sleep lever to get that. When we talk about
Hmm.
exogenous hormone use, we're talking about people who are supplementing with testosterone or testosterone derivatives, synthetic testosterone derivatives, to
Hmm.
achieve more of that same effect. So steroids work, and it's not just because um, they don't just help you quote unquote get big, right? Steroids help
Yeah.
you to a certain extent recover better so that you can work harder
Yeah.
sooner the next time.
I say that that's the whole mechanism of things is people think that like, oh, I take steroids, I'm going to get big. Well, here's the deal.
Yeah,
If all I did for the next 6 months was sit on the couch, but I pumped myself full of exogenous testosterone, just
yeah,
bump that dial to 11.
yeah,
Testosterone has nothing to do. There's nothing for it to like manage and make better because I'm just sitting on the couch.
yeah,
So it's not that steroids make you bigger. If used properly, and I say quote unquote properly,
yeah.
if used properly, taking performance enhancing drugs, namely testosterone, growth hormone, a whole bunch, there's a whole list of bunch of things, but
Mm-hmm.
um, taking them allows you to recover quicker
Yeah,
so then you can perform more work. And
yeah,
if we know anything, it's that the biggest mechanism for increasing the cross sectional area of your muscle tissue is time under tension. Time under
oh,
tension and volume is what makes you bigger,
yeah,
and to put it towards like a CrossFit thing, because I'm sure most of our listeners are somewhat in the CrossFit space. The reason CrossFit Games athletes are bigger than you is because they train more than you.
yeah,
They're doing more shit. Their muscle is under more tension, more volume, more of the time. They're going to, by that mechanism, be bigger. And
yes,
that's leaving out, we can argue about whether games athletes are on steroids or not. We're going to leave that off to the side. But just based on the mechanism of they train more than you, they are
yeah,
going to be bigger than you. So
absolutely.
it's like not that steroids make things easier. Steroids enable you to then work harder.
Yeah,
You can do a chest workout if we think like a bodybuilding split, right? You're
yep,
like, all right, chest this day, back this day, legs this day. And it was like basically each day of the week was a different section of your body.
mm-hmm.
If you are taking performance enhancing drugs, you can train, let's say Monday, you can do chest in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
legs in the evening.
Yeah,
On Tuesday, do back and arms. On
yeah,
Wednesday, you're doing chest and legs again.
yeah,
So by the time you've gone through a 7 day week, you've trained chest and legs 3 times, whereas your normal human has done it once.
yeah.
It's like that's just in 1 week.
To be clear,
Take
the
take
go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
Oh, I was going to say the performance that we are enhancing is recovery.
Yeah, 100%. And
Yeah.
because it's enhanced recovery, your performance is then enhanced
Yes.
because you're recovered. You have the horns. But it's not hard to figure out if you take again that 7 day week where it's someone's like Sam has trained chest and legs 3 times. I've done each one once over a week. Okay. Extrapolate that out over a year. Like Sam's markedly ahead of me.
Yeah.
Extrapolate that out over 5 years. We're nowhere even close. Sam's
Yeah.
on his own planet over there
Yeah.
of results and progress.
Yeah.
And it's you got to kind of take some things with a grain of salt when you see things on social media and Instagram. You see someone who's like, hey, look at this massive transformation that happened for me in 3 months. And you look at them in this picture and they're like, itty bitty toothpick person. And then in this
Mm-hmm.
picture, they look like, the person that ate Dwayne Johnson. It's like, they didn't do that because they added an extra set of like fire hydrant kicks to their glute. Like that's not what that's not what happened.
Yeah.
It's they didn't do like it's not because they added in like a clapping push up instead of a normal push up. That's not what did it.
Yeah.
It's the if anything seems if you look at it and you're like it seems a little bit weird that amount of progress happened in that short a period of time.
Yeah.
I'm not saying this is always the case because there are some genetic freaks out there.
For
We've
sure.
talked about Marcus Philly, who has looked like an Adonis since he popped out of the womb.
Absolutely.
It's like, so there are some genetic freaks out there that can just do things because they're just gifted
Yeah.
physiologically.
Yeah.
However, more often than not, if you see something, Instagram, social media, YouTube, whatever it is, that's like a lot of progress happened in a very short period of time, odds are something happened in there.
Yeah.
Someone took a little dabble into Mike's secret stuff. And so that's just
Well,
my thought on it. If people are looking at stuff and get discouraged by the fact that someone on Instagram put on 15 pounds of muscle and lost 20 pounds of fat in 3 months, it's like, probably not.
well, I think, we try very often to do a job of keeping this to about 40 minutes. I think this is a good stopping point. So, what I think we should try to do is, we might have some guests in the next couple weeks. In fact, I know we do. So we'll come back to this, and I think it would be interesting to explore this topic and what does it look like? Who are some people who we know for a fact they're on juice, right?
Mm,
And both in and out of the CrossFit world, because there are some better examples outside of the CrossFit world. Some people who are, you look at them and then when I say it, you're like, yep, totally makes sense. And other people, you're like, wow, I didn't think about it, but
yeah.
yeah, I really don't have an explanation otherwise.
I say, because that's one of the funky things about performance enhancing drugs, right? Like everyone thinks you're going to turn into like a muscle head, but it's like Lance Armstrong was on a bunch of performance enhancing drugs, and he
Right?
was just like, I mean, he was the physique he needed to be an elite cyclist,
Yeah.
but he was on performance enhancing drugs, and
Yeah.
it's like they don't have to make you more jacked and muscular.
No.
It's because he wasn't training his muscles for that; he was training his body for cycling.
Yeah.
So,
I think let's come back. Let's explore this topic of performance enhancing drugs, steroid use and abuse, and what it looks like in a bunch of different things, and specifically CrossFit, and maybe the most famous
mhm.
case of all time, at least for us, Mr. Ricky Gerard.
Ooh,
So, yeah, juicy. All
like
right.
it.
Between now and then, next time I come back, I'll have a baby. So, who knows? Baby number two might make an appearance. No promises, no guarantees, especially about my health and well being.
Yeah.
Wish me luck,
Want to see what
everybody.
you say? We want to see what caffeine can do. Check back in with Sam in a week.
For real. Kevin's going to be the duct tape holding my life together.
Oh
Uh,
gosh.
Kevin, I love being able to do this with you. Thank you so
Oh
much for
yeah.
taking the time, my brother.
Always.
Yeah, man. And other than that, everybody who's out there, be well, keep working out, and send us ideas for crazy shit to talk about. See yous.